Hey everyone, welcome to our painting today. We're going to paint this really colorful sky, colorful reflections in the river. We're putting some color into the little land areas that you see here. It's a fun little painting. I know we've done some sunsets and sunrises and that sort of thing before. So we're going to kind of do the same sort of techniques in the sky. I'm going to just move my sample somewhere where I can look at it. Maybe right over here. Let me move some things around on my desk here. I want to make sure you can see everything that we're doing. I've got my palette over here ready. I've got white. I've got my primary yellow. I've got phthalo blue and green, a little Payne's gray, a little burnt sienna over here, and the deep ochre. I've got some orange, some quinacridone magenta, and I think that's all we're going to need. The trick into the skies that are something like this is starting with the little bit of the lightest areas that we'll see, the yellows. And I like to give a buffer, which we've done before, with a little bit of white sometimes around it, so that when we go right into yellow, into blending a little bit into our blues, we don't get too much of a green in the sky. There's a little, but we want to save and preserve some of our lights. And then slowly blend in the darker colors using a white as a buffer sometimes. While we're painting the sky here, we'll jump down and put the water in at the same time. So like usual, we're working back forward pretty much. We'll start with the sky. We've got a little bit of a mountain range, very light, some purples here. And then we'll do our ground, and last we'll put our little tree in. It's a very simple scene, but I think because of all of the action and the colors in the sky and down here as foreground as well, it's nice to keep it a little simple. So I'm going to use a lot of my hog bristle brushes this time, but you can always use, you know, if you have your 3/4 inch or 1 inch brushes, whatever feels comfortable to you. I haven't used these too much lately, but I do like them when I'm doing backgrounds and things like this. And again, colors that you like, brands that you like. You don't have to do the same thing that I have, but I've got my usual Liquitex here with a few of the colors that I like in the Deco Art. I did not get out the Prussian blue though, so let me put a little of that out. And again, you could get that easily with your phthalo blue and a little of your Payne's gray, but I do love that dark blue that's already mixed for me. All right, so I'm going to start light, and I'm going to just start with my bigger brush. I know I have some yellows in here. Now, of course, we haven't traced this sky on, so everyone's is going to look a little different. Just get a little bit of light area in there. Even mine is going to be different than this original when I paint it again the second time. So let me jump in, and I will start now with I'm going to get some white on my brush just to lighten up some of that yellow. I'm going to take a little yellow at the same time. It's going to get that light yellow. I'm going to kind of blend in where I want. I kind of want it in the middle here. And I can dip right into the yellow if I want to get a little stronger yellow in some places. I'm going to work fairly quickly. It's mostly orange down here, but I'm going to go in with some of this yellow. I'm going to work a little quick if I can. I might take some of that orange right now, right into that, and get that nice peachy color. Can always come on afterwards and get it a little deeper. I want a little of that orange through some of this yellow. Yeah, the orange is a little darker, so that's going to also give us a little leadway into some of the darker colors. And then I'm going to get a little pink around there. I'm going to go right out on the edge there with that. A little bit of pink. Maybe some white in there just to tone it down a little bit. When I go from the outside edge in towards the wet paint, I'll just kind of slide it in there, maybe a little blend, but not too much. The trick is going to be getting around these yellow areas with a little darker color. Not even going into the greens or the blues yet. This is still wet and it's allowing me to work around it. Some of this pink goes right into the yellow, some is just skirting around it. I can mix a little pink with the white and get a little bit brighter pink. So I'm preserving my lights by trying to just quickly get in there. This is really kind of dry now. almost hear how dry the brush is. I'm sort of just blending that in. I'm going to come in later with some light yellow and bring it out into this pink area still, but at least we're getting that sort of protected. I have some pink areas up here too, so let me just get those in now while I have pink on my brush. It's almost going to be a little bit of pink under the blue that's going to come up here, and some of the blue will cover it, will give us a little bit of a purple look. I'm kind of looking over at my sample now a little bit to see what I've got there. Now I'm going to rinse that brush off because I'm going to go into some of the darker colors, and I don't want to have the pink on there to start right now. I don't mind having a little bit of a purpley look at some point, but let's just go now. And I'm going to go into some of my blue. It's really dark and I don't need it dark yet, so I'm going to take some white and get that a lighter blue. And I'm just going to go across. And I'm looking at my sample, just seeing where I've got some blue. This is pretty dark, so since it's so dark, I'm just going to wipe off the brush and just go into just white, just to lighten that a little bit. You can see I'm kind of skirting around the pink a little bit. In some areas, I'll kind of go over it a little bit. We're going to mix some of these colors again. This is, I have a fan on me, so my paint is drying rather quick. But it's going to be a good exercise in these skies. So I know sometimes I want it a little darker, sometimes a little lighter. I sometimes just let the brush decide. I've got some blue on there. It's a little darker. I could dip right into white and sort of, like I said, using that white a little bit. It's a softer blend. I know there's white of the canvas showing still. I'm just kind of hopping around here and getting some of these colors on. I'll move my paint cart over a little so I have a little room here. I've rearranged my studio and I can't decide if I like it or not yet. But it's kind of nice to always have a little bit of a new look. I know down in this section on my original I've gotten a little darker. I could grab a little more of that blue, or I could very well come in later and just slide that in. Don't have too much blue way down here. It's more purples and pinks as we get close because these mountains are going to be blue. I know I have some darker blue areas that are streaked through in some places though. I think I'm going to get some of the darker blue in with my Prussian, I think too. I'm going to just go back into the white to get it a little lighter. You can see I'm sliding it in from the side here a little bit. Now this is also a time where you can use a little bit of floating medium or retarder if you find that that sometimes helps. I sometimes like to take a little of that on my brush. It just gives me a little more blending time. That's something you could play around with if you'd like to see how that all works. I do want to get a little blue in there with the Prussian, but you know what I'm going to do in the meantime? I'm going to take a little quinacridone on this bluish brush I have, and look, I get a beautiful purple. I know I want some purple in here and there. It's a little dark. I'll just grab white. So when I have the color and I try it on my canvas, I can tell then if it's a little too dark or light. It's hard to tell on the palette, but when I do, I can adjust it just by dipping into the white. I don't have to remix or do anything like that. I think I have a little bit of a purple coming through the sky here. Again, my new painting is going to be very different than my sample anyway. Just getting some purples in here and there. Get some nice purples if I go over some of the area that is blue, actually. And it's just mixing all these colors. They're all going to go. They're all colors in the sky. So at some point, don't worry too much about copying what you see. Just look at your own painting, squint, and see how it looks to you. It doesn't have to be just like mine. I see some of the canvas little nooks and crannies showing through. I can always just get a little just of the floating medium on there and just kind of get that in just to start making sure I have covered those little areas. I can just get that a little more. And I'm wiping off the color, and I'm just going to go into maybe a little of that Prussian blue. I know there's just a few little spots where I want it just a little slightly darker, and it's nice if it's still a little wet underneath because then you can sort of blend it. So I'm being careful. I'm getting just a little bit of the Prussian on there, sliding that in here and there. I can blend it out if I need to with my medium there a little bit, just softens it, and it keeps it a little wet so that I have a little time to play around with that. All right, so there we have it. That's a good base. We kind of saved some of our lights. I needed some lighter yellows in there even, but that's okay with a little yellow with our white mixed in. The white gives it a little more of an opaque look, so I'm able to cover a little bit. So I'm going to just finesse it a little bit. You know, I did neglect to do down here while we were doing the colors. I should have just hopped down there and done some of the colors as we did here. So I'll go back and just get a little of that yellow in. A little of the yellow is kind of in the middle areas of the water. Got my yellow, hop into my orange, just like we did up above. Might be easier to do it separate like this too, because we were hustling up there to get it blended before it dried. Working back and forth, again, like we did in the sky, because that emulates the direction of the water a little bit. Same method that we did. We started with some yellows. We went right into our oranges. We can go right into a little pink now. The pink I'm bringing in kind of from the sides into the middle a little bit. The water is going to be darker on the edges. So I'm getting a little dark there. I'm not worried about overshooting on the land masses. Those we can bring right on top. They're dark enough. That'll be easy. I'm going to just rinse that off and get a little light. We're going to go up in our sky and get some lights, but let's just get them in the water here. I'm going to go into my white, which has a little bit of yellow. So we're going to get that light yellow back in spots. It's nice to blend this back and forth when things are still a little wet. We'll come in after it's all dry too and just put a few little white streaks and highlights through there. So we need to get a little more of our back into some purples now. We've got a little blue, a little quinacridone makes a really nice purple. Again, I'm going even a little further out kind of than the pink. I'm just working my darks out towards the edges of the water. A little bit of the blues we're going to get in there too. I'm sticking pretty much on the edges, bringing the blues in this way. I might get with a little bit of the Prussian here and there. That's a little darker. These little crevices will be a little darker. Again, I can add some, white in whenever I want to. How far does this water go? Right about here, I guess. It's a nice contrast with some of the Prussian-y blues, and then a little bit of the phthalo with white, which is lighter right on top. And we're still going to finesse like we're going to up here, but I'm just going to get a little base here. And that's a good start. Let's just leave that now and jump back up to our sky. I'm going to just go with a little bit mid-sized brush. I'm really just using, actually I don't think I'll use the big one. Oh, I did use the big one for the top, I think. And then I've got these three. These three will do everything we need except for maybe the tree when we get to it. All right, so going back into our little lights to start there again. I'm getting my light yellow. Putting that here and there. So I have put the lights in the yellows, oranges, pinks, purples. Then I came in with the darks, so I've lost a little of this, but then I can go right back now and I can just add, even like if I want to streak some in a few other spots, just that way. The white in that yellow is helping it, so if it goes on top of blue, it's not really turning green. So I can just go back to where I had my lights and just kind of scoot some of those back in. I'll do the same with a little orange, getting it a little peachy again. But let me get the yellows first. And some areas are going to be pretty strong white, like maybe where the sun is setting back there. This little one area could be a little more brighter. I didn't, but you could almost put a little white sun in there somewhere, down around here. I think I had just a little splotch. I don't even know if I meant that to be the sun. I want to get a little more pink down here too. And again, this is important to kind of not keep looking at the sample and kind of just looking at the sky that you're making, because it's going to sort of form into your own unique sky there. Take maybe a little orange now. I can get a little orange in there. With it mixed with that white and light yellow, it's kind of peachy, which is nice. I'm kind of looking at sometimes where I have some of the little white bits of the canvas showing through. I can kind of get in there a little bit and sort of get the brush into those little spots, so I'm getting rid of some of the little white bits. Can kind of almost eyeball those, for instance, like over here, if there's a little bit, I can go right in, just getting those covered a bit. I'll come in here with some more pink after too. A little bit of that color up here. And I'm going to kind of rinse my brush in between now, because I do want to keep the colors separate. I want to go in for a little bit of a light pink again now. Quinacridone, a little white. I might be needing some fresh white because I don't want to contaminate it too much with the yellow and blue. I'll put some over here maybe. Try to keep a bit of my palette so you can see it while we're painting. And I know I wanted some pink down here behind these mountains. I'm starting down below the color and just kind of softly working it up in. Over here, maybe the same thing. And again, now I kind of look at my edges and say, oh, I want to get a little bit of those little white speckles covered. Because I take a little pink and a little white randomly, they always going to be a little bit different shade, which is kind of nice. I can see I have a little of the white showing through there. I'll just kind of do that. I kind of want to keep checking my video to make sure that you can see where I'm working. So that's why when I pop away for a second, I'm kind of checking that video. This could be a little lighter even than the pink that's under it. And I'm just kind of softly trying to blend a little bit. If I see an area like here, I know it looks a little harsh, it's not blended as nice. We'll go back and work on that. But if I use nice light strokes and just almost like just skimming across the top with a little bit of paint on my brush, almost like we're scumbling it. We've done scumbling before. It's a good way to sort of soften the dry color into the one we're putting on. I don't think I want to get that bright, but I don't hate it. I think we should get a little purple in here next. So we can go with our blue and our pink. I've got a little bit too much blue on that little mix, so let's try to get that a little more purpley. And we get some white in that. Find a purple that we like. It's looking very close to the pink, so maybe I needed a little more blue. Let's see. Looks a little harsh there, a little heavy. Mix it with a little bit of pink maybe. I find it now a good time to maybe put a little of that floating medium again, or the retard, or just some sort of a medium that sort of just, it just helps soften, it helps keep the paint a little wet, giving you some time to blend. I'm squinting and looking at this and it's kind of coming right along. I kind of like it. I will need to add some white to any of these colors now, really light, to kind of blend a little bit maybe. See how that little lighter area almost looks like it could almost be a cloud in there, sky there somewhere. A little on that might help to start blending that in. I'm really now going to try to get my little nooks and crannies covered because there's a lot of that showing through. While I have any of these colors in my hand, if I think I need to add a few down here, that's a good time to do some of that. And I'm going to go back now even. This is very strong, these yellows, because I was trying to hang on to them. I'm going to go a little bit of a lighter shade, a little white into our yellow. I'm bringing it over to the side of my palette just to kind of blend it on the brush a little bit. So I've got a little bit of even lighter yellow here. Concentrating on top of where the yellow is, kind of going back and forth. I can go up into some of those dry colors just lightly with the brush and see how we have sort of blended in this darker blue. I want a little dark blue there, but it was looking a little harsh. Anywhere I want to, I can come up and just, I'm hardly touching the brush to the canvas. I can streak in wherever I want. When I'm down here in the yellow, I go a little heavier with the white. Bring it out into those edges. Sometimes what's dictating where my brush goes is where I'm trying to fill in a little bit of those, a little bit of the canvas showing through. That's a little dark in the yellow. I can take white just on the brush now and sort of soften that. Any of these areas, if it gets too yellow, I can come back with some oranges. I think I'm almost there. I don't want to overwork it either. I'm going to rinse off and get a little bit of the light blue again, just to almost make some streaks, to blend these blues in, and almost, if they're like almost little clouds, if they're very light blue. So if they're very light, it can almost look like a little cloud. Take a little of that medium. Now I'm mostly squinting as I'm painting, just to try to get that look I'm looking for. And again, you could go back and do this as much as you want. This is the little area that's a little dark for me and kind of bothering me. So I am going to get pretty light there, just to blend some of that in. I'm kind of going where the light meets the light and leaving it a little darker, a little further out. It's a little greeny there. A little bit of a, I'm gonna go just with the white on my brush now, and just on top, a few spots in the yellows, just almost the white on my brush, almost using on the chisel edge, just bringing in, like I said, some highlights. It almost could be clouds. It just could be here and there. If a color's too dark, you can just skim this over it. I have a rough edge I don't really like, just kind of skim right in there. There. And again, you can come back with anything you like. If you want a little more punch of orange somewhere or yellow, you can go back, even because we've used our pink so long ago, you can come back with it. If you feel like you need to put some of that back in, that's easy enough. Just going to do that as an example. I don't think I really need to do that, but you can do that. I think I need some pinks down here, though. I really don't have too much pinks. It's a bit of a big brush for down here, but that's okay. I'm still getting nice little streaky lines. Okay, I'm going to leave my sky. I'm going to work on my river down here a tiny bit. I think I'll go for just a flat brush, just one of my, softer, it's not real sable, it's a synthetic brush, but that way I can get on the chisel edge some of the thin lines I want through here. So I want to go back and get, pump up a little bit of my yellow in places. Not too much, it's just mostly in the middles. Get a paper towel here. Get some whites in here, and I'll get a little fresh white out. Again, you can use a little liner brush for this if you needed to, but I like just to use the chisel edge. I'm trying to get a little heavier so it's a little whiter highlights. And again, if those fade, we can get more in later. I want a little bit of that peachy color. So I'm kind of almost repeating what I had put on earlier, just to kind of reinstate it a little bit. It's a reflection of the sky, so we want to keep those colors in there. And I just want to get a little dark on some of the edges, which I can always wash in later too when we see where the land masses are actually going. But if I take a tiny bit of Prussian blue, I I'm gonna just thin my paint a little bit so it's more like a little wash. It's a strong color. I don't want to get it too overwhelming. And I know some of these areas are going to be cut down smaller because of the little land points that are coming in. So I think I can do some of this later. Okay, let's leave that and get some of, let's do our blue mountains. Those are pretty simple. I can actually do it with this brush. I think it's more kind of a little bit of a Prussian blue, maybe some phthalo. Just get behind this tree. That's a little bit dark. Let's get a little brighter. Going right over here and with this purpley that I mixed before. Oh, I came down too far actually. Hang on, we're gonna get this as the mountain area here. And you can see that good. Can almost go right over where the tree is because we're gonna see some of this through the tree leaves. And it's just a little bit of a mountainy shape. Shades of blue. See how I'm really having to scrub in just to get those little nooks and crannies. And they're hard to see sometimes because the paint's wet and it's shiny. When it dries, we see, oh, that wasn't shine that we saw. It was the little white bits coming through. It's going to be kind of purpley at the bottom. So I think if we maybe go just with some pink along the bottom, we can start getting that a little purple. We need it lighter than that, so if we grab some of our white, across the bottom is just going to be a little bit more pinky purple. Let that dry a little bit, and top is going to be a little bit more of a lighter blue. I'm just using these dirty colors that are on the palette there. A little bit of a lighter blue just to kind of streak that through. I did it pretty quick. I think it's sometimes if you do it quick and leave it, it looks more spontaneous. And that's as simple as it's going to, we want to keep it. Now I'm going to put in some shadows for where the land masses are going, just so we can separate all of those little, they're all like little points coming in. So I think I'll use some Prussian blue and maybe some phthalo green back here. I want it fairly dark. I had a little bit of a dark across the horizon line too, and if that's not dark enough, I'm going to pull a little Payne's Gray. I just want a dark bit across that horizon line back there. It's kind of separated, it just lets me know where it is. And some of these points, so I got this one coming down. Something between the tree there, just I don't know why. Right around the water there, it's a bit dark. Threw a little burnt sienna in there just to deepen that up. You can get a burnt sienna and some blue, gives you a nice dark a lot of times too. I guess maybe outlining these a little bit, just where I know where they are. So there's this little area coming in. Let me just look at my, I've obscured my tracing, so we're just going to kind of eyeball that. Here was a little land mass under here. Let's see, the tree comes down, there's this, and there's a little one that sticks out from there. That. So I think that gives us, as long as they're like little zigzaggies coming in. We've got our darks there. I need it even darker. I'm gonna go a little bit of the Payne's Gray and some Prussian blue. Get a dark brown there. Darkening it up, just putting a little bit of that mixture in there. The tops of these are a little bit lighter some places. Let's divide these because I have some that are just the yellow ochre and some are just the army green. Back here, I think that's going to go up at a little more of a, there. Okay, so at least I've got some borders there. And we're just going to use a variety of greens, really kind of earthy greens, nothing bright here, earthy greens, the deep ochre, a little bit of orange peachy on here, some phthalo where it's a little bit more blue-green. So a variety of greens, but it's almost a little striped just to make them pop sometimes. So we've got a little lighter back here. I've done a darker green here, and at the end I did a little bit of like a turquoise, just kind of a few bits of turquoise on there. It's done rather quickly and haphazardly. We just have to get a coat of paint on so we cover in the nooks and crannies, and then on the top afterward we do some of these little strokes of the orangey yellow, the deep ochre. So let's just build up our way to that. We need to start with a little bit of darks. So we want really a very earthy green. And there's a couple ways you can get that. I'm gonna make sure you can see my palette. There's a couple ways. You can get a nice earthy green with some black or Payne's gray into your yellow. Look, it gives you a nice earthy green. You can also do that with your yellow ochre. But I want something pretty dark right now. I might take some of all of that. A good bit of the, so that's a real dark green, and it's very close to what we have here, but in some places we just want to get a little bit of the dark green. Let's see, this little thing, the frontmost little bit of land there is dark on the bottom. It's going to come right out to here, but be pretty dark. And I can't get it as dark as I want because of the white canvas, so as soon as that dries, I'll just put another coat. So, and this as well. Dark in there. This little bit is dark, this little section. It's got dark, I've got this dark. So I did it a little dark here. Behind the tree it's dark there. Oops, I didn't mean to cover the water there. I'm gonna squint because that helps me see where some of these are. And if you get a little confused, kind of revert to, I don't want to say striped, but it kind of is. If I've got a big dark area here, I want to leave some to do some lights. Then I go back into dark, leave some for some lights, back into dark. And that will really help with the kind of the cool popping of these light bits on the top. That is good for some of the darker green. I'm going to get more into the little earthy green now. So I'm just rinsing that. I'm going to get some more of this yellow here and more of just the yellow and the Payne's gray to get me a really olivey, army kind of green. That you can also achieve by getting your complementary color, which we do a lot. A little bit of it's green, so we get a little bit of that red in there, and that's going to get that even deeper army green for you. So I'm going to go up against what we have for some of these dark areas, more earthy, a little bit of deep ochre in there. Lots of ways to get that earthy green. You might even have it in a bottle. It's kind of like Hauser green medium. I've got some areas over here where I want more goldy and orangey. But with slowly filling in these little land masses. I want to get even lighter, and I think I'm going to go more to the goldy type tint. So if I just go with that dirty brush into my deep ochre, yellow ochre, whatever you have. Now I'm kind of putting it up against the dark because I don't want to get it too dark too fast. I'm putting it up on top of the green and then mixing it a little bit. I'm not going to go right into the green here and bring it up because then we will lose the lightness of it. So I'm up above the dark, up above, and then you can kind of mix it a little bit. It just preserves some of that light. I don't want to repeat and have everyone exactly the same, but I can change that up with some of the colors I'm going to put on top. For now, I kind of want to get the white filled in. I know I'm going to have a bit of light you know, the yellows and the oranges up in the back here. And because there's nothing under there, you get that nice lighter gold. Put that in. I see some white showing through the canvas. I'm going to address that as I can. Oh, I neglected to put some of the green down here, so I'll just quickly do that. Top of this, of course, is going to be a little bit lighter too. Sometimes I'm just going in and kind of almost like I'm erasing the little bit of white showing through. Okay, so we're getting there. Let me take a little sip of water here. Get a little of my orange in some places here. Back here a little bit, maybe. I'm going to pull some of these colors more into the water if we need them, but let's finish the grass, and then with what the water needs, like here where it's kind of blank, we can wash in some colors. I had a good bit of orange down here somewhere. In some places I had it a little lighter, so I'll add a little white to that, get more to that, you know, that peachy color a little bit. I'll still come back with some lights of the. Some places I even did a little burnt sienna. That's nice and earthy too. All right, I'm going to rinse that brush off because I want to get a little bit of a lighter gold and then kind of a lighter green. Just white to any of these colors will work. Let's get a little white into this yellow ochre. And I put it on the canvas. It looks a little bit too white, so I'm just going to get a little more of the yellow ochre on there. I want it to be more gold than white. And I'm doing lighter strokes. I'm bloating the brush. I don't have a big brush load. It's a little light on the brush. And I'm just using light strokes so it kind of glides on top of what's there and you're sort of seeing what's underneath still. And I'm getting it lighter and darker as I need. Using a little bit of as a guide over here on my sample. But again, also looking at this as a separate painting completely, and how does it look on its own. Just a little mark making with the strokes. You know, that's going to be lighter there. This is going to be lighter all the way down. I don't want them to be too flat across the top, so I can use like a little over, if I take the brush and it overlaps a little, it gives a nice shape to some of those areas. Some of these areas are going to also be just that kind of a lighter green shade of this green here with a little light. Again, I won't know what it looks like till I get it on that canvas there, but rubbing it on top of some of these greens, letting a little bit of the green show through. Some I don't want to keep them all the same, so I'm going to make this a little more greener because that is pretty gold. I can use a little of that green on the sides there. I think this one looked a lighter green, and then with a little bit of the turquoise on top after, so we'll get that lighter green on. Now I want to start bringing some of that right out to the little tip of that little point that's out there. You can see I'm sliding the paint like over these colors, but you can still see the dark there a little bit. You can still see the green underneath a little bit. I don't want it to look too outlined like that, so that's where I could go in and just kind of get a little bit of something in there. Let me get kind of a bluey green, getting into that turquoise almost. So that's just phthalo blue and green with some white. It's a little bit of a turquoise. It's not super light yet. I want to have some light, but this is a nice color just to put in here and there. It's just your phthalo blue and green mixed. You can see I just kind of put it here and there just so it kind of balances, so it's a little in a little bit of all the spots, and with just white in that color I can just get a little bit lighter, like back here. So it was a little lighter, some under that tree. I need to dry off the brush. I want it to be a little bit more of a broken up stroke, like that. That's kind of like just the light skirted over the top. That's a little bit too much. Up a little bit. Just a few strokes here and there. And I'm squinting and I like it. We've got some work to do, not lots, but some work to do on that water. I like along the bottom edges of these to have that little dark still, so if I need to go back in and kind of just get a little bit of a dark in some places where the bottoms of these little pointy bits coming out. This color that we do with the lights, I want it a little bit lighter. I know it looked too white in the beginning, but I want to get some that's a little bit lighter. Just along the tippy tops there. Maybe a little more of that. Maybe a little yellow even in with that. And some white. I know I need new white out, but let's see if we can get something out of that. Drying off that brush so it's kind of just a dry brushy almost. And here, if I just do little brush strokes here and there and keep them sort of different, then we make these not look like they were all the same, as far as like light, dark, light, dark. If I put a little bit of this lighter green as opposed to the lighter yellow up here, I can kind of... Sometimes getting it to look random and natural is harder, especially if we, you know, spend too much time on an area. Gotta do a lot of squinting. When I squint, I see these darks, which I like, but they're a little too straight of a line. So if I'm squinting, I just kind of rough them up a little bit with a stroke here and there. Okay, I'm gonna go back and address the water now, because we need to just put the shadows in between these little bits. I'm just gonna kind of do a little bit of a wash. I'll take just the brush, a little water on it, a little Prussian blue, and I'm just going to just get a little wash in, especially just to cover some of these, again, the little whites of the canvas that are showing through. Here we need to get something just to make it look like the water's going right into those little crevices. And maybe a little of the lighter blue and a little white. Let's see if we can just get those right, you know, tucking them right in between there. Using the chisel edge so I can bring them out in these little lines. Maybe a little darker in here. This is a little obscured. We've got, this is water. This is a little bit of land. So we've got to make the water a little bit more water-like around there, but then we have to get that little bit of land to look like it should. So I'll get a little bit of our dark brown again, Prussian or Payne's with some burnt sienna. I'm just gonna see where we are over here. We've got this little area. This one is pretty well there. This is the one that's getting a little lost. I've overshot my water onto my land there, which I'll fix. Get a little shadow here. Okay, so. And I'm going to highlight yet again the top of this little spot. Just trying to get a lighter shade because I just see that I just got some of the water streaks on top of that. So we can just kind of get that squared away. I can lighten up a little bit. Again, I've got a little burnt sienna, some yellow ochre, and some white that I'm just, if I need to, in some spots. This little area looks a little weird. It's kind of cut flat, and this would be kind of coming down over it, so we can just kind of do that a little bit. But I've used that color. It's a little different than what I've had, so I might just, you know, put it in somewhere else. We need a little bit back here of a little wash. Oops, that's too light. That's kind of like a gray. I didn't rinse my brush. See, I was being lazy, so if I just get a little of even Prussian blue, just... that really separates that. We need to separate some of these spots behind. Want that motion going in there. And anywhere that just doesn't look like it's blended enough now, just any of these lighter greens or the lighter deep ochres, just a few little brush strokes just to break up like a whole line. I'm gonna grab a little of the deep ochre here. That's coming out. This is sort of tucked behind. And again, this is a little different than the original because, you know, you obscure some of those little points when you're painting in the water. Let's get back in and get some of our reflections here. Actually, we just need one little shadow here too. See, I kind of lost that. I don't want it to be water. I want it to be more there, the land. Now I'm going to rinse because I want to get my brush so there's no water on it, and I want to get some white so I can get that chisel edge. Again, this is, I'm going to use the flat, but if you felt like you wanted like a little liner brush to do this, you certainly could do that too. Now I know how far I can go with my little highlights. I know where the little land masses are now. And I can go, I want to do some yellow back, but I can't really get yellow because of these darks. So if I go in here with the white, some of these I can go over with some yellow or orange and get those lights back in. I can always do a little light blue too, if I have some dark blue areas. I want to do a little light blue here and there. And you can see those whites have sort of faded right in too. They're not as high, bright white as I'd like, but I'm going to use them for some of the yellow bits. And I'm going to get just the tiniest bit of yellow out because I just need a little bit, maybe a little white in it so it's just not so bright. And I can go right over some of these whites to get some brights back in. And it's okay if you hit that blue with the yellow and it does turn a little green because in the water that's okay. Maybe a little more of the peachy color. Step away from it, back up, take a look at it, see what it looks like for you. A couple of areas I might want that strong yellow not mixed. Here and there. Oh, maybe a little more purple. It could be done. It could be done right now, but I just kind of want to play with a few of the colors. I want a lighter purple than that even. Oh, that's very dark. I don't hate it though. I kind of like it a little bit. I'm kind of going a little bit too far, I think, but we do need a few more of those light blues though still. Tie it all together. And I'm trying to use that white that's in my yellow and it's just not working, so we'll get a little bit of a light blue. Go a little further into the middles, even lighter. That's a little dark, but see how putting these lights sort of blend that in now. And I might just get a little bit of a liner brush just to get some nice highlights on my water now. So I'll go right into some white. I know it's probably off over the side of my palette, but I'm just getting some nice white, not really watering it down too much because I really want some highlights that are going to stay white. There. Now we just have our little tree, which is almost in silhouette. So I can even keep this little brush pretty much Payne's Gray. The little trunk is really just a series of branches. I press, I pull it up. Just a few. I need to thin it a bit so I can get it a little thinner. And so it's just these little network of branches for this particular tree. You can put a few up where the leaves are going to go, but you really won't see them, but it does give you a place to really put them. And it's pretty dark to start, so I'm going to just dab on some Payne's Gray. I'm just going to get my smaller, I've lost my little small detail brush I like. As long as even if it's a bigger one, as long as it has a good tip, it will work for you. This has dried paint in it, but we're going to go with it. So, I'm just going to dab on some of the Payne's Gray. Again, trying to remember to leave some sky holes, but don't worry because we can come back and put them in if we need to. I need to get a little bit bigger. I can't just dab in the small ones. I need to have a little bit. I'm going to use the side of the brush a little bit just to kind of dab that in. I think I had to come back and change my shape of my tree because it looked kind of weird, but I'm trying to give it a tree shape. So there we are with the Payne's Gray. We can go into any of our dark greens we've got over here. Dab some of that. You hardly notice the difference. I'm going to add a tiny bit of yellow just so you can kind of see the difference. Yellow or the deep ochre or whatever you have left on your palette. So it's a little bit, it's a slightly lighter, more green. I'm going to go right into my phthalo green. I'm looking at my tree and it's a bit blue-green. I can do some just phthalo blue. And then I'm going to get it a little lighter. So I'm just going to take that brush with some white. I don't want it to be a huge jump, so I'm going to see with one little dab how it works. I need it a little brighter, so a little more white. But just try a little spot, because you never know by mixing on your palette how it's going to look on the painting. So I'm just going to get this right side a little bit lighter. You can even let that paint dry underneath, and when you do dab this on, it's a little bit drier and it has more of a leaf texture. I might just do a couple of spots over here. And then I just did a little bit of burnt sienna on the left side. Let's see if I have anything on my palette still left. I just did a few dabs over this side of the burnt sienna. Like again, hardly noticeable, but when you're looking up close, you'll see it. Don't know why, but it's here. So I took a little bit of this purpley mixture we had with some white. Dabbed it a little bit. I think maybe it was just too heavy here, so I just dabbed a little of that. It kind of made the mountains look like they're showing through. If you've lost, your background, you can go back and, let's see, do I have the tiniest bit of deep ochre? So if the tree is where the deep ochre is, you could just throw a few sky holes in. My tree's a little bit higher on this one, but you could certainly just throw some more of those purples in as if it's the mountains showing through. But pretty much, it's pretty much going to be just kind of in silhouette because it's got a little bit of the brighter sky behind it, and it's a little bit of a silhouette. So I didn't go into painting it in detail. And there we have it. So this was a pretty quick painting, but again, it's a nice time to practice these kind of skies. I know it's hard for a lot of times because you get that yellow on there and then you put your blue and it's like, oh, now I have a green sky. So I really try to isolate it a little bit. So I want to show you that again, which we also did in the water. And I almost think I could just do a tiny bit of yellow, and I'm looking at my sky now and I'm looking at my water, and I'm almost thinking I could just do a tiny bit, some more bigger yellow areas. But this is where I would just sit with it, look at it the next day and see if you think it needs anything. But sometimes it's nice just to let it sit for a little bit. So I hope you enjoyed that painting. I would love to see your paintings, and I will see you to paint again soon.